Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody. Good evening from Nigeria and good afternoon in Canada. So, before we start, I would like to encourage everyone just joining to please mute the mic. Please mute as you join. So, you're welcome to another live session for this month. And this is the second one we are going to be having for this year. So, and as usual, we have a lot for you guys today. And we have someone very important joining us this evening. So very quickly, I would like to introduce her before we go into the session. So join me as I introduce Mrs. Petrina Ako. So very briefly, I'll be reading a profile. Mrs. Petrina has a master's in business administration, and she is a passionate career coach who currently is a professor at a school of business. In her past career, she was a business analyst and a scrum master working with companies such as Nexen, Oxfam, and BlackBerry to launch products and services to increase revenue. She founded JJOM GSI in order to help ambitious character professionals understand the value they have and bring to help them learn how to brand themselves and get confidence in understanding how to prepare to show that value to hiring managers,
help people like if they're just coming to the country, try to
resume,
find a job,
and stand out and
their
get
resume.
interviews. A client usually say that she's patient and work to support them on their journey. So I would like us to welcome her into our midst. Thank you very much, Ma, for joining us this afternoon. So very quickly, I would also like to introduce our very own principal consultant, our very own convener, and our very own boss, Mr. Callistus Ekena. So you all know him. Most of you are familiar with him, but we should not be too familiar with him. So I'll quickly like to read a little thing about him. Mr. Callistus is the principal consultant of Blue Knot Immigration Consultant, registered in Nigeria as Blue Knot Travel Consults. And as a Nigerian by birth, he has been living and working in Canada for over a decade. And his life is a success story of holistic integration, educational, social, cultural, economic, and political into lovely Canadian society. He currently serves as a Brandon School Division Board of Trustee after being elected in fall 2020. And as a registered social worker with the Manitoba College of Social Workers, he also serves as an addiction coordinator, protection worker, and abuse control worker at Child Welfare Services. He spent 4 years as an intelligence officer with the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Person and other related matters in Nigeria, where he learned about migration risk management. So the experiences and position he has acquired come with unique opportunities, experience, learning, skills, and understanding required to advance a professional immigration service built on training received for the purpose and required resource for newcomers in Canada. These reasons, along with the genuine need to help people across the world to fulfill their Canadian dream, were part of what bettered this live session and also Blue Knot Immigration Consultant. So without wasting much of our time, I would like to open the floor.
Hello, if you're joining, if you can please mute, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ma. So quickly, I would like to welcome my boss, my principal, Mr. Callistus. He will be addressing us for the next 30 minutes. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Emmanuel. Thank you so much, Katrina, for joining us. And I want to make welcome everyone here, from Mutiu to Mabel, Chidebere, Sally, Monami, Obeyemi, Badmus, JD, Alex, Linda, Peter, Victoria, Anita, Marianne, CJ, Seyi, and someone else is still connected. So today, I'm just going to be very quick so that we'll have also a time for our guest Petrina to also speak to us. Like I said in our last session today, we'll be a little more talking about the study permit updates. We've had some updates, still other updates loaded. Could you mute your mic? Mute your if that as well. Mute. Yeah, please. Okay. So I'm going to be providing study permit updates. We've been in touch with IRCC for a couple of time now, and they've been trying to give us some information, some updates regarding all the things that all the changes they've been rolling out for regarding study permit. Now we have, like I said in the last live session, that we have a provincial attestation, and the provincial attestation is strictly based on CAP. You know, there's now going to be a CAP, a quota assigned to every province, and that quota will be determined by the population of every province. It will be determined by the population size of every province, and it also be determined by the number of application, study permit application to that province. So if you go by this, Ontario has the largest population in Canada. And if you look at that population, probably they may not be favored by this new arrangement. And if you look at Alberta, that also has a good population, not so much people, not so much as compared to Ontario, not so many applications, study permit application go that route. So this arrangement essentially will favor some provinces and may not favor some provinces and territories. So when I mean provinces, we also have territories. Now, the province allocation is not out yet. It has not been assigned yet. So this is something we're still waiting, and IRCC is still working on that. At the same time, the attestation letter from the provinces, we're waiting, we're hoping that on or before March 31st, that will be out. So that we'll be able to know which province will get what. Now, we are not really sure if the allocation, the caps, will be made public. We're not sure about that, but we are hopeful that this information will be available for everyone.
Check your story.
Okay, all right. We're hoping that this will be made available for public dissemination. Now, is the province, now once this cap is distributed, is now the province that will actually determine their priorities for students in terms of administering the cap. So is the province prerogative to actually know what area, based on their economy, based on their priority in terms of trade, that they will not say, okay, this number of students, we're going to allocate this to so field, this number to so field. So is the prerogative of the province to do that. Having said that, few things you also need to know about this. There will not be any reallocation of attestation letter. So if you get a provincial attestation letter, which in abbreviation is called PAL, P-A-L, PAL. If you get that, you will not transfer it to a different program. That's number one. You cannot transfer it to a different province. That's number two. If you are admitted, let me use Manitoba as an example. You apply to read nursing in Manitoba, and you get a provincial attestation letter for that program. And based on that program, you applied for a study permit, and probably, unfortunately, that study permit get denied. That's the end of that provincial attestation that you've received, provincial attestation letter. So that ends it there. If you have to apply for something else, then you have to start from the beginning of the process to get a new attestation. So attestation cannot be transferred, it's not transferable, it cannot be reused, it cannot be transferred from one program to another. So I just want to make sure that I'm stressing this point very clear so that you understand how this is going to be working out. So now the other thing, now if a student get approved for sure, then you're on your way coming here. Now the attestation takes a lot of things into consideration as well, which I may not want to go into in detail. One of those includes housing, okay, include housing and the economy of the province. Now, by way of definition, a PAL, that's a provincial attestation letter, is just a letter that is signed by a province showing that a student has been allocated a space in that province to come for a study. Now, it will have the student's name, it will have the student date of birth, and the program, including the school. The program, including the school. The only two programs that is exempted from this is for those that are going to be doing their master's program or PhD program. Master's program or PhD program. Like I said, sooner than March 31st, we're waiting for this program, for this provincial attestation letter to be out. Now, unfortunately, due to this requirement, we've had clients and we've had people, maybe people you may know, that have secured admission for probably May program. Now, this will definitely affect them. That means they are not able to proceed with their program. That is, if your admission or if you've not submitted your study permit before February 22nd. Sorry, before January 22nd. Beg your pardon. Before January 22nd. So that means you have to wait until this letter is secured on or before 31st of March. So if your application is for May, the likelihood of you getting your study permit to begin your study in May is really not there. So we're looking at September. We're looking at September. And all schools right now, I've visited some of the schools, everyone is scrambling, trying to adjust to the new reality. Trying to adjust because, again, this a little bit took some people by surprise. But if you've been part of this live session, even a year ago, we've been highlighting some of these things and also highlighting the public opinion that are shaping the reality that we have today. Now, so the schools are scrambling. They are really trying to meet up, trying to adjust their own program, adjust their own budget, because this is also impacting their budget, impacting their own programs as well, and impacting their own curriculum. So everyone is adjusting to the new reality. So it's not something that is new. Okay, it's new to everyone. So patience is a requirement in this process. I've talked about the exemption. Now with the work permit, okay, work permit for those that intend to bring their spouse or family members, their spouse will no longer be granted a open work permit. If you're on study permit, you're no longer going to be getting an open work permit. Okay. This singular measure has actually received criticism. IRCC, the government, they've received a lot of criticism as a result of this singular act. So presently, they are reviewing this, trying to see how to adjust it. Now, it could be positive or negative, but I think there's a little bit of light regarding open work permit for spouses. Now, it's not something that will happen immediately. And so we're hopeful that maybe something will happen in that regard. Now, for those who are already in Canada, they are exempt from this. For those who are already in Canada, if you're in Canada with a study permit, you're in Canada with a work permit, and you're in Canada with a visiting visa that is more than 6 months, you are exempted from this open work arrangement, and all these exemptions are applicable to you. Now, again, for the open work permit, for those who are doing their master's or PhD, they are also exempt from this. That means their spouse can also have an open work permit, as for those in study permit. Now on the timeline, we're now looking at September going forward. And that means that for those who already have their admission, we need to, if you're one of those or if you're one of our clients, the goal for you is to make sure that you have all the documents that you need to submit your study permit application. However, I know some of the documents are time sensitive. For instance, proof of fund, like your account statements, they are very, very time sensitive. But you want to make sure that you have all your documents ready so that when the attestation is out, it's all to go, and then you just submit. It is very important. It is very, very important because the system is going to be swamped. Okay, and you have to make sure that you have what you need to meet up for September academic session. Again, the system is going to be swamped, and you want to make sure that you have what you need to do, get it in, so that you get sorted out as soon as possible. Also, knowing that for those coming into Canada, August is going to be a very, very busy traveling period for those coming into Canada. So if you can try your possible best to avoid that month and try to come. So if your application is submitted, say for instance, April or May, that gives you enough room for your study permit to be out even before June or before July, so that you can begin to get here as quickly as possible to avoid that August because again, August will be very, very busy period for those arriving in Canada. Okay, so I just wanted to make those are so far the updates that I have regarding study permit and some of the things that I need you to know. Again, this information, some of you are maybe doing your own stuff yourself, or you have a friend or family member that or neighbor that you need to share some of this information with, to let them know. At least when you know better, you do better. Okay. And so I have few more time left. I'm just going to leave that because I know that maybe some questions coming up. So I'll pass it back to Emmanuel so that Petrina, or should I pass it straight to Petrina? Petrina, maybe you can just pick it from here and speak to us, and then we'll open it up for questions and comment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Calista. Hope everybody is able to hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, Callistus, for this opportunity. I think a lot of the things that you've mentioned today in terms of being aware of changes and being aware of approaches to your strategy to coming here are really important. And just to add on to that, my main area of expertise is in terms of helping you plan your career approach, either when you are coming, deciding the program, or also trying to identify once you finish your program or whichever option you're using to come to Canada, trying to understand what are some of the things you need to know in order to be able to apply for jobs and then secure roles. So just give me a second. Just want to set a timer. Okay, so when you are looking at your experience, the current experience that you have, and then you're trying to decide which option you want to use, it's very important for you to have a short, medium, and long-term plan. And then whilst you're trying to create that short, medium, and long-term plan, it's very important for you to do a lot of research in regards to the type of roles that you're going to be looking for. Why do I say that? Most times, what happens is you might have been working in one industry or in one company or in one type of role for a lot of time, and you might have a specific title, job title that that you know for that job. But when you're trying to consider Canada or other places as options, you need to do research on what is the equivalent job title, and then what are some of the key skills, knowledge, and experience that are going to that you would need in order to be able to create your short, medium, and long-term plan. So when it comes to your career, you really have to do some self-reflection in terms of what have you done so far in the past. Let's give an example. Maybe you are an pharmacist, and as a pharmacist, some of the key things that you do is you're working with clients to understand what are some of their needs or symptoms that they have, so that you can recommend medication that can help them get better, right? And so you have education that you've gathered over time. You have experience working with different people. And then you've also had experience understanding, how to use the systems or the processes and regulations based on your role. So now, if you're going to come to Canada and you're looking to work as a pharmacist, you will also need to look at what are things in terms that you would need. So usually in Canada, everything is heavily regulated. So that means that you need to research what is your the body that you would need to register for. What are the steps that you have to take in order to see if you can assess your your degrees and your experience to start operating as a pharmacist, as an example. And then you also need to identify what industries, and then what are the biggest companies in Canada that you can probably get an opportunity to work for as a pharmacist, right? So most times, whatever profession you have, there's a regulatory body, and that regulatory body will have a process that you have to go through. Most times, you will need to have either a WES assessment or an ICAS assessment. Those are looking at, oh, hello? Let me increase the volume. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think I have a comment here that says, could you maybe speak a little louder?
Okay.
I could hear you, but I don't know.
We can hear you. We
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
I saw that
proceed.
comment. So I've also tried to increase. So you need to do research. You need to identify what is the regulatory body, what are their, sometimes they might have one exam, two exams, or three exams, right? And each exam level is going to cost you money. So you have to plan and have some money set aside for their the fees that they would have. For example, recently I was speaking with a client, and they're a midwife from Ghana, and they're now in Canada. And we went to look on the website, and we noticed that, and she's currently in Alberta. And we recognize that in order for her to register to be a midwife, she needs to um, get a WES assessment of what is the equivalent of her midwifery education. She needs to also look at getting registering with the regulatory body. That can be anywhere from 1,000, 1,500. And then she has like 3 or 4 exams that she needs to take. Each exam was maybe 3,500 or 4,000. So that already is going to be a bit of a barrier, but don't let that stop you from, if you have a profession that you want to continue with, working towards planning for your short, medium, and long term. A lot of these things, if you come through the study route and you go and you do maybe a postgraduate certificate or postgraduate diploma, in maybe that area, or you register for a bridging program that can help you get the knowledge about the regulations here in Canada, and then also get the knowledge about, how they do it, because it might be a little bit different, the day-to-day steps of how they do things. And then if you take the school here again, that will give you, the skills and knowledge that you would need in order to then study to write whatever qualifying exams. So research is very, very important, right? So that is if you have a profession that you want to continue, lawyer, pharmacist, doctor, nurse, all of those things, you need to find the regulatory body, and then you need to find what is their process for them to assess your credentials, and then what's the process for you to get recertified here to operate. So now you want to be strategic in terms of trying to identify what is the areas you can go. If you're in the healthcare sector, healthcare field, especially maybe as a doctor or a pharmacist or those kind of things, maybe a strategy to consider is looking at a very small town in a province where it doesn't have a high population growth, high population, so there's competition. Why? Because there's a need for small town doctors, pharmacists, all of those things. Because a lot of times when people immigrate, they'll go to Ontario, or they'll go to Alberta, or they'll go to, big cities where everything might be a lot of competition and saturation. If you pick a smaller town or province that's not so busy, it can maybe give you an opportunity to fast track your process. For example, if you maybe go to Nunavut, that's definitely going to be a shock to the system. But if you go with the mind of being there for 3 to 5 years, that can fast track your process, right? So that's if you have a profession. So now the other thing is that you need to get your documents ready in terms of your resume. So maybe overseas you are using something called a CV, a curriculum vitae. And with a CV, you're going to list all of your experience, every single thing you've done since you've started. And the format for the CV is very, very different from what we use here. Ours is called the resume, and a resume here in Canada, you don't need any personal details like your age or your sex, or if you're married, or a photo, or any of those things. You want to make it just as simple as possible. And I always advise people to, if you have very long names, try and shorten it or use a nickname that you're familiar with that is short and simple and easy. Why? The challenge here is people are very busy, and then there's a lot of times people might find it difficult to pronounce foreign names. And I'm not saying that you should take offense, just try and understand that it's a little bit different, but you want to remove the friction. So make it as simple as possible. And for your CV, try as much as possible to only include information on the CV that is relevant to whichever role or job that you're applying to. What do I mean by that? If you are applying for a customer service role and your experience is that of a lawyer, you don't need to put that your lawyer knowledge and skills on that. You're just going to pull out maybe an experience that you had where you were helping customers and you were working to create documents or any of those things, right? So it's very, very important to make sure that you are able to, research and get those things in place. Resumes, most times I tell people, if you have 5 degrees, only pick the degree that is relevant to the role that you're applying to. If you have experience that is over 10 years, you've worked for 20 years, just put 10 years of experience. But if the job is asking you for 5 years worth of experience, don't need to put the 10 years of experience. Just look at your experience from this year to the past, to the past 5 years, and only put the information they're looking for. A lot of times people will have resumes that they're submitting, and these resumes are including so much information because people haven't done research about the knowledge and skills that are needed for the roles that they're applying for. And then they're either just thinking, I'm just going to put all of my experience that I have on the platform, on my resume, and I'm going to dump it. And so when I see resumes that are like 3 or 4 pages, I'm wondering, saying that you don't really need to have that much information on it. So one thing you need to get is a resume that's Canadian version. The second thing that you need to get is you need to prepare for interviews. And the way you prepare for interviews is by looking at the job description that you're applying for, looking at each of the different duties and responsibilities that they are asking for. And then you're going to ask yourself, based on this one line of duty, how did I do this type of thing in the past? And then you're going to craft a statement that is going to include the steps that you used in order to do that duty. So if a job description has 10 duties and requirements, what you need to do is you're going to look at each of those 10 things. You're going to put it into a document. And for each of those duties, you're going to turn that statement into a question. So can you tell me about a time when you did this? How did you do it? And then you're going to create a written statement that you're then going to learn and memorize and start to practice. And why is that important? Because when it comes to interviews, a lot of times I see that clients will be very nervous, they won't have confidence, and then they haven't practiced. And so the responses is including too much information or information from roles and responsibilities that have nothing to do with the question that was being asked. And then thirdly, what do you need to do? You need to update your LinkedIn profile to include the new information that you've created from your resume. And what is LinkedIn and how can it help you? LinkedIn is a platform that allows you to update, create a profile, and have a profile with a really great professional photo. You want to have it you looking at the camera, clear background behind you, and you want to be professionally dressed and you want to look at the camera and take the photo. Usually you can take it like have just stand in front of a wall and have a friend take it for you in is it a portrait? Yeah, in a portrait format. And then you can upload it onto LinkedIn. And with LinkedIn, what you need to think about is that LinkedIn is a search engine for recruiters, and recruiters are using LinkedIn to find people that have the keywords that are related to the jobs and the roles that they are looking for. And why is LinkedIn a great tool? LinkedIn, if you optimize your profile with the keywords, the knowledge, the skills, the tools, and the certificates that are needed for the roles that you're applying for, LinkedIn will allow you to stand out and allow your profile to be pulled up when a recruiter is looking for a job. Let me give you an example. If I'm a recruiter and I'm looking for somebody that is a business analyst and that has worked on maybe a healthcare project, I'm going to type into the LinkedIn search bar, business analyst healthcare or healthcare business analyst. And then people that have those keywords, healthcare business analyst on their profile, it will be pulled up. So there's so many different sections of LinkedIn that you need to optimize. You need to optimize your bio, you need to optimize your headline, you need to optimize every single job description that you have on there, and then your certificates and your skills. And then you want to try and get recommendations from your past supervisors, your current supervisors, your colleagues, or people that you've worked with on any extracurricular things, right? So we talked about resume, we've talked about preparing for interviews, we've also talked about LinkedIn. And there's a common theme that you should be seeing from all of the three things that I've mentioned. The first one is you need to do your research. You need to identify the job role titles that are similar to the job role titles that you have now. Why? Because maybe you have a role as a customer service, and here in Canada, it might be customer support, it might be customer service, it might be administrative assistant, right? All of those things. It might be call center person. Those are all things that are covering customer service, right? So those are different role titles. So once you do your research about the different role types, you will see for every single role, there's some key duties and responsibilities. There's some key knowledge and skills that you need to have. And then there's some key maybe certificates that you also need to have. So that can give you an idea of the things that you need to have and get ready. So one thing you should be able to see is keywords. So it's keywords, right? So I mentioned that on LinkedIn, when they're searching for that job, that person that has that role title, they're mainly looking for the keywords that are associated to that role. And then, so a lot of times when it comes to the job search, you want to use more of a proactive approach. And what would that involve? Rather than just you going on company websites and apply or going on job boards and typing in the words that you're looking for, you want to identify what are the companies in the industry that you want to work with, create a list of companies that you want to use or you want to target, and then you want to start doing a proactive networking approach. So you want to reach out to people that are within those companies, within those industries, so that you can start to learn a little bit more about what was their experience in the role? How did they get the role? What are some of the things that they recommend that somebody needs to know in that role? And then finally, you need to start, outreaching. When you're doing a proactive outreaching and networking, there are going to be times where people are not going to get back to you, but you need to be strong and understand that you have a goal and a target. You want to work in a specific industry in a company. And in order for you to do that, you need to outreach to as many people as possible. So it's more of a numbers game as opposed to being emotional about it. You need to be very analytical and emotionless about the process because people will not get back to you. You just move on to the next person. So now, based on all of the things that I've talked about, you might be like, oh, this is a lot of information. So, what I really do when I work with clients, I either do it on a one-to-one basis or a group basis, is really understand who you are, what is your experience, what are your goals, what do you want to achieve, and then we create a plan of action that touches on all of the three areas that I've talked about: identifying your companies, identifying the networking approach, and then we work together to get your resume, your LinkedIn profile optimized, and then we work together to prepare you for interviews. I like to work with clients to help them prepare for interviews way before they actually start getting interviews. Because once you are preparing for interviews, what you're doing is you're building muscle memory and you're building your confidence so that you wouldn't be afraid of the fact that, oh, I don't have Canadian experience. You'll be able to look at your past experience, package it in a way that is able to pull in elements of what employers are looking for, and then you're able to be confident and be able to communicate effectively when it comes to interviews. What is your value and why they should pick you, right? So that's what I do. And so you can always reach out to me at JJOMGSI. Maybe we'll share my contact details and we'll go through that. So I hope that that was helpful. I'm going to hand it back to Emmanuel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Petrina, for this wonderful enlightenment. Thank you very much. So very quickly, because of our time, if you have any questions, you can unmute or put the question in the chat. We'll be reading it out.
Okay. I think there's a question here, and but before I go into that, I really want to appreciate Petrina. That was a very, very clear, straightforward, and in-depth information. I think she handled it very, very well, better than anyone could. And she touched on networking, which is very, very important. Talked about fees that are associated with registering your profession here. Canada is a certificate country, so there's that fee required for you to get registered, whether it's as a nurse or as a social worker or as a teacher. There are licensing fees associated with that. So she touched on so many things. I'm going into detail with the preparation. So we're going to make our contact available. You can, if you want to reach out to her, that would be awesome. She is one of the person that we work together with as well, and very, 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 very wonderful person. And so just want to appreciate her again. Um, and just so you know that this information she's providing here, these are information that ordinarily you're going to be paying for it, kind of thing. But she's doing this out of the goodness of her heart, and I really appreciate that. So there's a question here from Victoria, talking about, I mentioned that, you want to get here as quickly as possible, avoiding August, rush month. Yes, so you can, sorry, I forgot that my camera wasn't on. You can actually come here um, at least 2 months before your study start date. So there's no issues with that. In fact, it's even more against you if you come too late, because you need to be here in time to get your accommodation all set, to visit your school. There are things you even need to start doing before your resumption time. Get acquainted with the environment, with your city. There's so many things you need to do to get yourself ready so that once it's start date, it started, and that means assignment classes are going to be coming. It's not the time for you to start making accommodation arrangement. So you need to have enough time to come. So there's no issues with that at all. Samuel asked the question, if a sample of the Canadian resume could be shared, we could reach out to Petrina. I don't know, Petrina, do you have anything to say about that?
I think I have some resources that I could share in regards to that. Usually with the templates, I will work with clients to create their individual template. But the good thing is, if you're looking for a template, you can usually just search for it in Google. But what I'll do is I'll share a link that you will be able to see if you can get an access to.
Okay. Thank you so much. And there's some information that's been shared on the chat box by Petrina. So I would encourage you, any of you interested, to take that information. It's very important. I have a question from Sally, and saying, what possible option do we have for a graduate certificate student whose spouses, because of the recent development, will not be eligible for open work permit? The option for such people will be a visiting visa. So visiting visa is still an option for everyone. So if you have your spouse here as a student, you can always apply a visiting visa for that person to come and visit you. Now, the restriction is on the work permit, where that work permit will not be available for your spouse. So that's the option, one of the options that is available for that person. Samuel asked, I think you have a series of questions here. And I think it's something that is more individualistic, I would say. I think you said it by saying, when a student is on a wait list for a program, what the students face. I think on a wait list, so generally schools put students on a wait list, okay? And the fate is not something that is certain. Now, it's dependent on, say, the people that have been offered admission. If someone declined the admission, then they go to their waiting list to pick whoever is next there. And it depends on what happens to those who are already offered, who have been offered admission, whether maybe they are not able to pay their school fees or whatever may be the circumstances. So waiting list is for the school to fall back to. They fall back to the number one person in the waiting list, number two, number three, depending on your position on that waiting list. Okay, and that's how that goes. Okay. Can she be on the wait list for weeks, months, or again, like I said, it depends. It's not something that is clear that way. Will it affect PAR? Well, if you don't have admission, then you're not expecting a PAR. But if you do get the admission, then you're going to be getting a PAR. Okay. How would a student know his tuition fee and the documents you mentioned that are to be submitted? Well, once a school has given you an admission, it will be routed through the provincial desk for that PAR to happen. And like I said, it's going to be starting on or before 31st of March. So once that starts, that means we have a structure. So every admission that comes in, it will be routed that this waiting period that we have now won't be the case anymore. What the student fair knowing session start in September? Like I said earlier, even if an application is submitted in April or May, we still have a good chance for you to make it up, get your study permit approved before your study start date in September. August is a very, very busy period. What is the best time for a student who resumes in September to leave for Canada? Like um, I said July. Okay, if you can avoid August, fine. But if you cannot avoid August, then you definitely have to come in August. I think there's a question. Question from Mr. Peter. If a parent wants to migrate or find all routes seem unfavorable in terms of requirement, can that parent sponsor his child in the student route and rely on the hope that when the child gets his PR, can the child bring his parents and siblings on the resident or work permit status? Um, that's actually a very, very, very important question. I've mentioned this and I will mention it again. There are some of those parents who, for whatever reason, maybe age or other requirements, are not able to be qualified for most pathways to come to Canada. And you have a child, that is maybe out of high school, like secondary school, or going into university, or have completed a first degree, the best option maybe is to sponsor them to come here for their study. And eventually they can bring you the parent, over either through as a visitor. And if they become permanent resident, they can also sponsor you. We have that program for grandparents and parents through the federal government to bring their, it's a raffle, it's a lottery anyways, through which you can, as a permanent resident, you can bring your parents and grandparents over here. Okay. But however, you can always come here on a visiting visa. And for the siblings, yes, once you live here, there is that advantage for you to actually provide a permanent residency route for your siblings who are maybe in Nigeria. So I do say that if you've turned 45, going to 50, look downward, look at your children, look at who you can bring over here. Those may be the best pathway for you, actually. There's some other question here. I don't want to miss any of the question. Please, what is the possible amount of tuition fee for master's degree in law and BSc in nursing in Canada? Mutiu. Again, it depends on the location, it depends on the school. For study in law, you cannot just come and apply for law if you don't have a first degree. Okay, you have to have a first degree. And for masters, and so for nursing, also it's applicable. Now, for most school fees, you want to be looking at, for nursing, you want to be looking at 20 to 30,000 per year. 20 to 30,000 per year. Now, that fee may be a little bit less or a little bit more depending on the location. Okay, if you're looking at, say, northern part of Manitoba, the fee could be even as low as 15. But if you're looking at a place like maybe Calgary, you may find a fee as high as 32,000. For law programs, you're looking at within that again 15 to 30,000. Again, depending on the school and the location. Any other question? This question. So Samuel, you're asking, but I have this question again. A student on the wait list, does it mean they have the admission? No, they don't have the admission. There's more information that is posted here by Petrina, so that's good. So that's so far the question that I have on the chat. So it's open now for anybody that want to make a comment or have a question, please. Question and comment
for you. Okay.
Okay, hello, Sammy, can you hear me? Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So while you were answering my question, I kind of missed some part, but I think the main thing I would like to know is if the child can bring the parents and the siblings on the maybe work permit, maybe they can have their PR also issued on the basis of the child's own, yeah, not just the visiting, just coming there to visit the child. So that's what the question is about. No, it wouldn't be applicable in that way. It wouldn't be applicable in that way, except in some circumstances. Circumstances like if your child is below 18 years old, is a minor, and so you want to either of the parent, either the dad or the mom, or want to come with this child, uh, as a support. Yes, in some situations that's applicable, although there are ways to circumvent that. If you have someone that could sign for you here to be a guardian of that child, then you don't need to apply to come with that child. Other than that, um, the application for a child to come here for study does not permit for that child to, to bring someone else. Because looking at it this way, that child is actually essentially being sponsored by the parents. So it's not the other way around. It's not the child sponsoring himself or herself to come here for study. You look at how the money flows, in that regards.
Okay, but I think if eventually the child gets permanent residence, would the child be able to get the parents and the siblings to live in Canada with him as permanent residents?
No. So when an applicant is applying to become a permanent resident, and look at it this way. So if a child is a student here, graduated, become a permanent resident, during the permanent residency application, okay, the family members that will be asked to be included, that will become permanent residents when this child becomes a permanent resident will be this person, the spouse, or the children. Okay, those are the people that will automatic or adopted child. Those are the people that will become automatically permanent residents at the same time with this person in question. The same thing applies if a dad or mom is the applicant for permanent residence, and the people that are included in that could become permanent residents. If in the case of the mom is the principal applicant, the mom will become a permanent resident, the dad will become a permanent resident, the children will become permanent resident. Those children that are included in that application and any adopted child will be included, will become a permanent resident. Not mom, not dad, not extended family member, not siblings. Now, for a child to be here and become a permanent resident, the advantage that provided will be in this way. One, if your sibling in Nigeria or elsewhere is applying to become a permanent resident here through express entry, then that child here could identify as a close relative, which will add points to that person. That's one. And also, it could help with networking and navigating other processes. There are other pathways that could be an advantage. But in simple short, that once somebody become a permanent resident, that will not be transferable to a sibling or parents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good evening, sir. I'm sorry. Good day, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Samuel.
Okay. Sorry. Still dwelling on this wait list issue, and that's because I'm really not clear about certain things. Because it's like the more you keep answering me, the more questions keep popping up. Now, I want to ask a question, which is this: does it mean that a student who is on wait list now doesn't can the student does it mean the student doesn't have does it mean the student can reapply again for another program entirely, or keep waiting until there is a space? And for the fact that no one knows the definite time where when there will be a space, should the student reapply for a totally different program instead of waiting, knowing fully well that there is no definite or known time he or she will be off that waiting list? It might take months, it might take up to a year. I do not know how it works. But to be on the safe side, does it mean could the student reapply for a totally different program and a different session entirely?
So, Samuel, thanks so much. It's not that for you to be in the waiting period, that's a definite date. So if you apply for September program and you're put on the waiting list, that waiting list is for that September program. It's not, it won't be transferred to say winter of next year or September of next year. Okay, once the admission process for September is concluded, the end of that waiting period. Okay, so that's one. Two, if it's something that you want to do to apply for a different program while you're still on the waiting list, it's completely optional. It's something you can do if you want to pursue that. Yeah.
Okay, because okay, does it still mean that that admission, or rather being on that waiting list, is like how do I put it? Is it that it's null and void? Should there be no space for that September program?
Should there be no what? Sorry, I missed that.
Should there be no space for September program? Does it mean that process is null and void simply because it cannot be carried over to the following year.
Correct.
Is that what you're okay?
Correct.
So it's like hanging on a thin thread, right? You don't know. It's like the person doesn't know their position actually, because it's no okay, no problem.
Yes. All right. Any other question, comment? All right. Katrina, do you have a final word before we wrap up?
I would say that it's very important for you to do a lot of research and try not to get overwhelmed on the process. But as long as you're able to identify what your short, medium, and long term goals are, that should be able to help you. And the challenge might be that maybe there's so much information out there. So sometimes you might just need somebody that can kind of work with you hand in hand to help you figure those things out. So definitely Callistus and the team for the immigration route is a fantastic resource, and they're usually very dependable and resourceful. So sometimes to make your journey shorter, even though the money seems a lot, I recommend sometimes that you should invest because it'll shorten your time to get to where you need to go to. And so you can also reach out to me for any questions related to what are some possible career options and how best can you create a good plan of action for being able to get a job either before or after you get here. Okay.
Thank you so much, Katrina. We appreciate you spending this time, this space with us. And I want to appreciate everyone here for finding the time to join us. Again, this information session, like she mentioned, there's lots of information out there, but it's best you know the correct information. Again, when you know better, you do better. So I just want to appreciate every one of you, from Briggs to Katrina to Jim Debere, Sally, Miriam, Monami, Badmus, Chidi, Alex, Samuel, Stellar, Bright, Valentin, Linda, Frank, Oyemi, Anita, and Bright. So I just want to appreciate every one of you, and of course, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next month. Bye for now.